And welcome to this week's edition of Break the Bank. I'm Jeff DeForest. Joining me and wearing his Tiger Woods winning colors here. It's like the fourth round at the Masters. We got Mike Jones looking good as well. No Frank G this week, and we're sorry we weren't with you last week. I was in degenerate heaven last week, Mike. And I know you're not a huge horse guy, but if you ever were to become one, this would be the way to go. We were watching A.J. Johnson's horse. The Town was the name of the pony that he was running on a Friday. I believe it was the fourth race at Keeneland. Scene was spectacular. And I have never in my lifetime, and this is saying a lot, never in my lifetime seen a stronger collection or concentration of beautiful women than you do every day at Keeneland Racecourse, especially when the sun is shining and the temperatures are in the low 60s. Just unbelievable. What a scene. I mean, ratio of beautiful women to just regular average people, 1,001. It was absolutely incredible. We watched the Town break dead last from A.J. Johnson. It was very disappointing because I was taking some shots at a horse and the Panic looked great. The crowd loved him. Everybody was embracing this horse. Went off, I believe, 2-1. Was still the post-time favorite. And then they break from the gate, and you always see one horse like in the back. It's kind of tough. I was down by the rail there trying to get some video of the horse coming down the stretch. And instead, I look, and you always figure whatever horse you bet on or you keyed off, that's the one that broke dead last. That was the one that broke dead last. So that was kind of ugly. But we missed the show last week, and we kind of lost track of where we were at in terms of records and things like that from the week before. So good to be back with you. Frank G., speaking of degenerate horse players, is en route right now, and the reason he couldn't make the show, he is heading for the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar, a spectacular.
Ooh.
I have some friends going there. I would have to put it right up there with Keeneland, Del Mar. Great experience. If you're going to go to any racetracks on your bucket list and you're thinking, I really want to experience this one time before I die, forget about Yonkers and Roosevelt. Roosevelt's closed now, Roosevelt Raceway. That's where I grew up with harness racing, where you're yelling, hey, Karma, you going to stiff another one? Karma never tell him. But these two places, and especially, I mean, you have the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. It's too late to get going there because it's Wednesday and the races are on Friday. But I would already start making plans. And Mike, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to go to Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. Might be difficult to get tickets. I do have a place to stay, which is really good. So that saves you like a couple of dimes and gives you more ammunition to be at the windows, which is the greatest thing that could ever happen. So we missed you last week. We have a lot of football to discuss. We're going to deviate a little bit from our mandatory 3 games and the 2 games electives and things like that. Frank G has been coming on a little bit. We've been pretty decent for most of the season, would you say,
Yeah.
Mike? We have
around 500, 1 game under.
I don't know that we're stealing the jewels out of the Louvre right now, but breaking the bank, we're coming close. I'm sure not many banks would be broken by our action so far, but at least we're on the positive side. I believe we're going to try to stay there once again this week. So let's start with this. A couple of things are on my mind before we get into some football and college and pro football for the weekend. Lining up once again is a very difficult assignment, but nonetheless as spectacular as anything you could want. You have baskets going on right now. You have hockey going on. A lot of different things to take your attention and give you an opportunity that if you're striking out in one sport, you might be hitting on another, which is always a good thing. But World Series, now yesterday I gave out on the Barry the Bookie show, I did give out the Toronto Blue Jays as my pick on the contrarian theory, which was every single piece of momentum, every minute bit of information that was going out about this, the narrative, as they call it, was all about Shohei Ohtani, and rightfully so. The guy has had monster performances, of course, in the championship, the league championship round. He throws that shutout for 6 innings, hits 3 home runs. Maybe one of the greatest individual performances. I don't even know if you need to put a maybe in there. Up there, probably what? Had to be in the top 10 individual performances of all time in any single game, whatever the sport may be. Would you agree with that?
The 3 home run game?
The 3 home runs, 6 inning shutout, 10 strikeout game.
Yep. Totally made me believe at that point that he's the best baseball player ever to play, and up there with the top 5 athletes, 3 athletes of all time, without question. Tremendous. And didn't do badly the other night too in game 3.
Gets on base 9 times. All right, so there's your narrative. And in I believe every game is pivotal in the postseason. Game one is pivotal. Game two is pivotal. Game three is pivotal. I mean, they always use, oh, it's a pivotal game five. And I'm thinking every game it matters, right? I mean, you just don't want to lose a ball game. And the Blue Jays end up losing in 18 innings, a heartbreaker. Freddie Freeman home run gets him out of it. Otani gets on base 9 times in that game, and guess what? He's going to pitch tomorrow, which was
That's right.
last night. People are talking about this guy, rightfully so, as possibly the greatest player of all time. Period. Maybe, I mean, those performances were indicative of a guy that might be the best in any sport all time.
Mhm.
You could have made some of those claims, at least about these recent performances, for sure. And look, he's got the track record and the resume to back it up. It's not like he's been a slouch before, but he's pitching last night. And the Blue Jays look, you would have to think completely deflated, no? After losing in the fashion they did, 18 innings, they had chances, they had bases loaded, they get Kershaw in there in the 12th, he gets a guy out. And you're asking yourself, what do these people have to do? Minus 205, the Dodgers were, plus 170 for the Blue Jays. And I'm thinking, whenever the whole public, all momentum is on one side, you're almost obligated to go the other way, are you not? Especially getting a price. And sure enough, it ended up being a relatively easy win at 6-2, in spite of the fact that Otani was on the mound. What was your thinking about that game going in, and where do you think we're at 2-2 in a series? We now have a best of three to decide the whole thing.
I think you're spot on. One of the things that I saw was late in the innings, Otani was on base. He made a run at the second, and the trainer went out, and you could see him kind of looking like he did something with a twinge his groin or something. And I thought immediately it looked like it was his right side. He's got to push off the rubber out with that leg. And I said, maybe the start isn't the one that he's going to have. Now, don't get me wrong. He was great. He came out with first and second, the seventh inning, in a 2-1 game. But you just think with all that momentum and the adrenaline and all that, and Freddie Freeman saying he only slept 3 hours the night before and the big home run, all that doesn't wear on you. And if you're pitching in that game on game 4, right, last night, if you're just a regular pitcher, you're probably around the 10th inning, 11th inning, are told by the manager and the GM, hey, take off home, avoid the traffic. We're not going to do that. Let's go get in bed by 10, 11 o'clock. You go so you're ready for tomorrow. Meanwhile, here's a guy who does for the first time in the history of the game is on base 9 times. Now, I'm not saying on base for a guy like Otani bothers him. It was Bartolo Colon being on base 9 times. You probably couldn't get a guy out the next day. Otani is the superior athlete, but still, you got the little twinge in the leg that happens. You got the on base 9 times running around. It's not a typical night off for a night before a start for a pitcher. And I just felt like that and the momentum going all that way. And then the old adrenaline rush that kind of does. I thought it favored Toronto a little bit last night. And I saw that line at over 200. And I'll take you back as a handicapper on a gambling show. Otani starts, you're laying big numbers with the Dodgers. And he wasn't winning those starts, in the game. He was only pitching inning 2 or 3 innings early on. But you were laying that number with the Dodgers with it. And you were losing because they were losing the starts in the beginning when Otani was starting, when he came back to pitching. So I just kept that in the back of my mind and thought, you know what? Let me take the run line plus 1.5 runs or something, or
the plus
give out that play. And it's like you're sitting there in a 2-1 game, knowing if you have plus 1.5 that you're pretty safe. They got in a 3-run homer, or you got to get up 4-2. If it's late in the game, it's not like there's a runner on second base in every game, and overtime they have to start from scratch, or a solo home run, you're still protected. So I thought last night, even money straight bet plus 1.5 runs was a kind of safe moniker for that. And, that's what I thought. So I think you were right on in understanding that there is something to be said about all that adrenaline, all that momentum kind of does take a little bit of gas out of the tank.
All conversation, too, was heading in that direction. And rightfully so. Look, Otani deserved all of the accolades that were coming his way. But blindly, people were thinking, okay, this is going to be a mambo right into the winner's circle there. You couldn't lay 205 to win 100. On any baseball game with two teams of this caliber, because they do look to be relatively even, and as is represented by the fact that the series is at 2-2. But wow, I mean that did seem very appealing, the plus 170 in that spot, and all you had to do was use the contrarian theory, because whatever the public sentiment is, it seems like the opposite is the way to go, and that was the case last night, and it may well be the case tonight. I don't know how you feel about it. Before we get into some football, let's take a look at this. Snell comes back out. All right. So, look, when you watch this guy's stuff, left-hander dealing like he does, spots the pitches so well, and that breaking stuff that's going down in a way is just impossible to navigate your way through. If you're a left-handed hitter, you're dead meat.
Right.
And he's going against a lineup now. Were it not for the fact that Otani is making history and erasing records that have been in existence since 1908, I mean, using aughts to cite the
Right.
how far back some of these accomplishments go in Major League Baseball. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is having one of the greatest postseasons that we've seen
Yeah.
among many great players have gone ahead and been able to exhibit. But wow, I mean, this guy, if the Blue Jays win, it'll be interesting because now Toronto in a position there that to obviously win the thing. Otani lost a ball game as the starting pitcher in spite of his greatness and the heroics he's had with the bat, and not a bad outing or anything. But
No.
how does Guerrero not get the MVP if Toronto wins the World Series? That would be one thing, and no one's talking about this guy like he's doing nothing.
Right.
It's incredible. So I'm coming right back with the Blue
Well,
Jays tonight.
yeah.
This seems insane, but it's the same price, Mike Jones, plus 170 versus a minus 205 on a money line. You do have
Mhm.
Snell out there. You have to beat him, but they got to him before. And why isn't Toronto in there with a shot tonight based on the momentum they gathered last night?
I'm going to look at it this way. Snell had 10, 11 days off prior to his game one start. And in that case, I think that, listen to some pitchers talk, and I got a great expert in the pitching game that I get
You're talking to like
an
Koufax, I
earful
think, before these games. I believe this.
from. Yeah, I get an earful, and Brett's he says Snell's the best lefty in the game and probably the best pitcher in the game. I see him bouncing back tonight, and I see the Dodgers winning this game. I just look at it like he lost game one. Now there's a little more pressure on him. We'll see how he handles it early. If you get out of the first inning, lights out, I think probably that kind of helps him. I think a 2 or 3 run first might get him to start thinking, hey, have I lost it all of a sudden? And we know today's athlete thinks a little differently than the athlete of yesteryear. But I look at it like I think he bounces back. He's on the regular rest now after that long layoff. And I think what people say, when you're in a groove and you get that layoff, it kind of hurts you. You feel like you're pitching everything, you're in a vibe, you get it ready to go and all that. Now all of a sudden you get that time off because you sweep, waiting for the other series to end. And I think that's what might have been causing a little bit of a disruption in his timing and all that. So I'm going to say Snell bounce back. But here's what I will say. Right now the Dodgers are at 190 in the series. Toronto plus 165, a little value. If you have the Dodgers first, you can't bet. But I would absolutely think right now, my buddy feels Yamamoto might get hit around the second start when he comes out in game 6. And the other thing, too, you have to look at, too, Jeff, is if Freddie Freeman doesn't hit the home run, I believe Yamamoto's coming out to pitch the 19th inning. He's loosened up in the pen like he's coming out ready to go. Would that have put all this disruption if this goes 20, 21 innings and Yamamoto's pitching 3 innings? What happens now in game 6? It all kind of changes this whole narrative of where the series goes. So my play is going to be very weird, but it's different than most. I'm going to say Dodgers win tonight and we get a 7th game. And now I have a plus 300 or plus 400 on Toronto in the second game. So I'm going to take the Dodgers tonight and Toronto in the series after tonight's game, and hope I get a game 7 and play the hedge game or do whatever I feel like I want to. But that's going to be my kind of messing around, for trying to get some numbers going in my direction, have a little fun with it. But I just feel like I think the Dodgers bounce back. They had their little wake-up call last night. I think they proved they're the best team in baseball, talent-wise, and come out and play, and great. And then to your point about Guerrero, absolutely. But I'm going to go on the other end of the diamond and say his play that he made on that ground ball when Edmund beat it out, and Hernandez, I think, one of his beat it out, and he made the play and got Hernandez at third. I thought that was as good a play as I've seen in a while, where he steps off the bag, not letting the ball get to him, realizes Tasker is going to go to third, and comes off the bag and catches the ball off a short hop, throws directly, and nails the guy with a perfect throw by a couple of inches, basically, at third base. Just a tremendous play. And I'm sitting there arguing why, in baseball 101, you learn in 5th grade, never make the third out of third. Why is this guy looking to take that extra base, knowing how hard that ball was hit? And according to the mindset of a player, you're not thinking scoring on a single, you're thinking scoring on a pass ball, which is kind of weird thinking. How often does it happen? But to risk that at that point, a tie game in the World Series, I have no idea what these players are thinking. And that was kind of mental blunder, but a tremendous play, bang bang play that Guerrero made at that point that kind of led me to think, how good of a player is this guy?
I love the fact that how are you not working for NASA, developing formulas to land a man on Mars? I mean, with the numerology that you exhibited there, and what we're professing to the masses that are listening to the show, I don't know how you are not qualified to be among the highest paid of mathematicians. Just incredible, Mike Jones. Guerrero hustles, which is a nice, impressive thing. It's very refreshing to see in a superstar who
Yep.
really hustles. In contrast to De Niro and The Fan, one of the worst sports movies, if not the worst. I mean, only rivaled by Robbie Benson in One on One. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I
Oh
do.
my God, that was pathetic. Right? You know, where he's the hotshot player and the coach hates him, and finally he comes through in the clutch. It's like, oh please. Then he quits the game and gets the girl. You couldn't have had a more
Right. Yeah.
stale
Never
plot,
happens. That never
but De
happens. I
Niro and The
know.
Fan, I mean, where he was obsessed with the fact that his superstar player he thought had all the ability in the world didn't hustle, so he ended up shooting him. Uh,
Right.
it's nice to see Guerrero exhibiting some characteristics that are the antithesis of all of what we're seeing in sports these days, which is a nice little segue into our next thing here before we get into picking some football games here on the show for you guys. But all right, so this always strikes me as being odd. I don't know. I was stunned the other day. If I play any kind of lottery, I'm waiting till the jackpot's over like a couple of 100 million. I don't know about you, Mike Jones. You're a gambler your whole life.
Hmm. Right.
If I scored like the usual when it comes back down to scratch, I mean, so you comp 20 million, would that not be enough for me? I think it would. You're looking at
Sure.
these buyouts that these coaches are getting, and you're thinking, well, why on earth would James Franklin pursue another job so that he could get paid the same amount of money or less than he would be making if he just sat on his ass and did nothing the rest of his life? There was, I'm sure this was artificial intelligence, but it showed three guys drinking a Corona. And of course, it was Brian Kelly, it was Billy Napier, and it was James Franklin. And between the three of them, they comped like $130 million in buyout money to go away. So I'm
Mhm.
never working again. But I would say this that I felt this way, and I'll buy. I didn't realize that Mega Million tickets were $5 a pop. That kind of dissuaded me from playing that because why is it you feel like if you don't have more than one ticket, you have no chance? Even though you have no chance if you have
Right.
five, if you have 20. There are guys you see lining up every now and then. You'll see a guy he drops his black American Express card on the floor, and then he reaches into his wallet and peels off $200 to buy 100 Powerball tickets. Which you don't even want to go through 100 Powerball tickets, do you? To find out if you're like getting back $60 for your 100, if you're lucky.
Right.
There's a 50% takeout in the pool. It's the dumbest bet that a man could ever make. But what fascinates me
Mhm.
about it, because and I actually ended up in an argument with my wife about what we were going to do with the money that we hadn't won yet. I don't know if does that happen in the Jones household where
Yeah, we don't really think like that. I used to I played it a little bit, but now I've kind of pat balked on it. Just it's tough. I think if it gets to the billions, I play in it. But
come
it's
on, you
crazy
got
to
to take
sound.
a shot.
When 100 million will give you freedom for life, but we wait to a billion to play.
If I
It's
had 2 million
different.
right now, I think I'm out. We're in pretty good shape,
Right.
young babes,
Right.
everything at a beach house in the Caribbean somewhere. Although we're helping our friends there in Jamaica and the other island areas that the
Yes.
storm did. I mean,
Oh.
devastation city, man. And
Oh.
I happen to love Montego Bay. I haven't been there. I was there twice about 40 years ago, covering a deal that the NFL alumni had where they held these golf tournaments to try and help benefit pre-59ers who were shut out. I'm sure you're familiar with this cause, shut out from the
Yeah.
pensions.
Mhm.
And so these guys were trying to raise money through these golf tournaments. We end up at the Wyndham Rose Hall resort there in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And it couldn't have been any more fun. The golf course, you're a
Right.
golfer. You would love this. The golf course looked like it was designed by Rube Goldberg, not Hank Goldberg, but Rube Goldberg. Where I mean, you're hitting a 9 iron off the tee to make sure that you clear the cliff, and if you do hit clear the cliff, the ball's rolling all the way down to where it's almost on the apron of the
Right.
green, where you're now hitting some kind of chip. and this is
That's
a
great.
par four, and then the next thing you know, you're hitting balls, you're shanking balls into the ocean, and
Yes.
yeah, you're right along the beach. Great place. So we certainly hope everybody's okay there.
Yes.
But this is the thing. I mean, and you fantasize about winning these lottery tickets, and what amazes me is like this is the weirdest analytic of them all in gambling, where I don't know, it's some ridiculous percentage of these people go broke. Mike Jones.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
percentage? Is it like over 10% of the people that
Maybe. Yeah, it can
somebody
be.
handed you two
It's
hundred
a
fifty
tough.
million dollars and you're going to go
Hmm.
broke? It's not happening. I
Yeah.
mean, you're too sharp for
Right.
that. I don't care how much you gamble, how much you step up your game. You know how that
Yeah.
goes. Once in a while, somebody will
Yeah.
come up and go, "Hey, Mike, I noticed you really stepped it up of late." Like, well, what are you talking
Right.
about? You're betting 100 a game now. You used
Yeah.
to bet like.
Yeah. I'm sure if I don't need it, I'm stepping it up because I'm angry at the system. Yeah, I get it.
All right.
That's
So
not
my
happening.
belief is you couldn't lose this much money in a lifetime. There's no way. No matter how stupid you are, no matter how screwed up you are in your approach to things, it's more than enough. It's hard to fathom going broke, and that leads to this business about what's going on the integration of gambling and professional sports and college sports, where it was taboo. Remember, I mean, Phyllis George was spitting up pea soup on the set there of the CBS Sunday football pregame show. As soon as the Greek would say, "Okay, I like Cleveland minus 3.5," what are you kidding me? You can't talk about that here on the show. Now they're totally integrated. And what we're seeing is, I mean, it's hard to fathom a guy that's in the NBA for like, how long has Terry Rozier been playing in the NBA?
He was on a $23 million year contract. I think a
26
4 year,
million.
92 million. Yeah.
He was making
Right.
this year. Three hundred
Right.
and forty thousand dollars, I believe, a game, and $170,000 a half a game. $85,000 a quarter, Mike Jones. This guy goes out, he doesn't
Hmm.
even have to play. He's still getting 85 grand.
Right.
Guess what? When the second quarter rolls around, well, that'll do it for the first quarter here. And the Knicks hold a 2 point lead. Rozier has 4 points. He's still getting another 85,000 the next quarter. So how do you get in a jackpot where mobsters are involved? I mean, all this crazy stuff that's going on being reported in this story, including with Chauncey Billups, and over 200 grand. It seems impossible.
Yeah.
Now stories are starting to surface that he owed the IRS 8 million, but still he was going to make
Right.
$26 million this year for being some kind of a role player with the Miami Heat, who were not of lofty expectations. It's not like there was a ton of pressure on this guy. How do you get to that situation? How do you lose enough money where if you hit a lottery ticket, you're broke? How does this happen in the NBA or any pro sport for that matter?
I, I don't know, but I just look at it this way that, if he told a cousin or a friend, hey, I'm probably not going to make this game tonight. I'm a little nicked up. I'm going to go out there and give it a shot, but I'm probably going to pull myself out because I can't risk injury. It's late in the season. And that guy goes out and uses that information however he uses it. And Terry Rozier does not know. And I'm sure that's what the investigation of the NBA came about, that he basically gave it out there. Might have admitted that he said it or didn't, but he didn't know. And then, that person does whatever. And then it comes back to us that he kind of got paid, 10, 20, $30,000 for what he did. I think he's completely at fault, and he should have, he should
It's worse
face
than
the,
Pete Rose. No,
due
I mean it's
process.
right up there
Yeah.
with Pete.
Right. Yeah.
His
Yeah. And
race
we
to
know
his
what happened to
grave. He
Pete.
went to his grave oh my God,
Right.
how could they still hold this against me?
And yeah, and so, as we go and we look at that, the next thing I say is that, it's not the worst thing to give out that information, but the league should have to figure this out, that, what we're going to give out to gamblers as a big part of this, because I'm going to go on record and say that, the NBA product has been a little bit different. I see in 270-point totals in these games where the guys aren't looking like they're playing defense. Saw a video last night where now the new rule of a walk is, until you regain control after the top dribble, so you can take 4 steps and run with the
They had a
ball, and
clip
then
of
take 2
Anthony
steps to the
Kumpo. He
basket.
goes, he a minimum
Yes,
of
you
5
saw the video.
steps.
Right, we're showing that
Yeah.
last night. And Reggie Miller's sitting there rolling over and
How is
going,
that
this is just
possible? You can't
ridiculous.
do that.
Right. So the rules are changing to gear more offense. So now it's like, okay, then the defense shows up in the playoffs and then the games change. But with all the gambling, I think that they want to make the scoring a little bit more and get into the fantasy points of everything and everybody going over and the fans happy and all that to try to get more viewership. And I think it's taken away from the quality game as a basketball purist, and now coaching my 11-year-old grandson and trying to keep focus of what I learned when I was taught the game and actively thinking through, was not having the greatest ability, but could think through the game better than my opponent. I look at it like it's a different way today. And it's just the whole thing is played differently. You have to get in shape. You have to be strong. You have to elevate to the rim. All the athleticism is what we're harping on, and the great shooting ability and step back shots when you walk, all this stuff. And then you go where now everybody's betting on the individual player, not necessarily the game itself. And now you have this that could happen. And I think it's going to put a sour taste. I know a lot of my friends that used to bet exclusively have been talking to me about they've lost the desire to even bet. They lose, and these things are happening, and now the players are fixing these games. It's hard to do it as it is. And now you have the actual league itself. And then you see that Adam Silver's got to straighten out because the NBA collects revenue off it. Jerry Jones has deals with certain books. The NFL.
Everybody's making money. And you know what? They have the right to make money off the betting on their product. I believe that to be true. But and I've said this a few times. I'm sure I've done it with you on a show somewhere where it still stands out to me when I was in my early 20s trying to break into the business. I did an interview with Harry Dalton, who was the general manager at the time of the California Angels. And he had been, of course, very successful with the Baltimore Orioles before that. A real hardcore, old school, Buzzy Bavasi type of general manager that they had back in the day, very popular. And I remember him talking to me, and I'll never forget that he said, listen, we have to ensure people, this is in the early 70s, we have to ensure that people believe the game is on the level. Now, this was before betting was even a consideration. Betting was like something that was almost like, talking about your adventures at some strip club or something in public. You just, nobody paid attention to it. But he was still, at that time, saying that the integrity of the game, this wasn't with regard to Pete Rose or any of this stuff. None of that had surfaced yet. Just in general, that people have to believe that what they're watching is actually transpiring, that it's not rigged in any way, shape, or form. Now you always thought, and you said this, and we've talked about it, that it would be easy to get to the referees, but you would not think, and this gets back into how do you blow lottery money, that a player would be in any kind of financial jackpot to the point where, now, like we said, Rozier supposedly owed the IRS $8 million, but he could have paid that off with a third of his season's salary and been out of this jackpot. And still had like 18 million left over. So how do you blow that? You would never think a guy could be influenced like that. So a bunch of stuff is happening on the gambling front as a result. And now we're seeing college players are now going to be okay betting professional sports, but not college sports. And there's a movement afoot to eliminate all prop bets on college players.
I agree, and I'm one who's deep dug into this kind of thing. And I know it would hurt Prize Picks, who's a number 3 operator in our country. They have a very unique platform where you have to get 2 or 3 or 4 games as one. So if one of these games ends up getting fixed or props getting fixed, you still would have to back it up with a second or third or fourth bet to get paid. So you'd have to pick something that wasn't affiliated with this. But if they take away this is a big revenue stream for what these companies do. And so, I look at it like, I just think this. Coincidentally, I don't know, I'm probably conspiracy theory in 101 here, but tell me why all of a sudden PASPA gets passed in 2018 and now the NIL comes into a situation where now we're going to start paying these athletes. Is it the integrity of the game? Is it that the Garrett Nussmeier, who's playing for LSU, and Brian Kelly arguing, all of a sudden he's not getting any money, and now someone walks over to him and saying, hey, if you can blow that game in the second half against Texas A&M and we'll throw you $100,000 and we'll do that. Would you do that and make it look like you're winning and all of a sudden lose the game? And now he throws a couple of picks in the second half and you don't even know what's happening. And then you can go back and see this video. So I think that's what happened. I really believe this, that I think some of the NIL that proceeded after PASPA, I think was a cause of the fact that they wanted to keep the integrity. And they knew with all the gambling coming out now that was legal and people having easy access and legally, would they get to the players if the players felt threatened? A quarterback of a team not getting any money, would he be influenced enough to go to the dark side? And the other point I bring up this, and this is factual, you can watch it. If you go back and watch the ESPN 30 for 30 on Fab 5, Mitch Albom tells a story of Chris Webber walking down the street with him, and Mitch Albom admits illegally giving Chris Webber $20 to fill his car with gas. And Chris Webber points out that his jersey is in that window for $75 and I get nothing.
Yeah.
So someone's paying more money for my number 4 Michigan jersey, Chris Webber, $75. And here I am broke and can't afford gas in the car. What's fair? And then, of course, Ed O'Bannon won the lawsuit against his likeness, name, image, and likeness to go that. So this is the whole thing. I mean, there's
Oh,
a
well,
lot.
we know the system was bizarre. I mean,
Right, and I agree that the kids should get paid, but
absolutely, yeah.
Nick Saban goes on a great rant this weekend on game day where he basically tells a story of the fact that how hard is it to coach these kids now that are getting paid all this money. And a good friend of mine who just
It's a
retired
lot
from college,
easier to tell the coach to bleep off.
that's right. And who's going to have the power? Not the coach anymore. It's the player. So maybe these buyouts are something that look. This is my thought on Brian Kelly and of all this. I thought he clearly checked out in the second half, but I thought he checked out year one. I think he left Notre Dame a way where he was able to get to the kids, went down at LSU to be competitive and win a national championship. His accomplishments in Notre Dame were unprecedented. I had people in the Notre Dame athletic office explaining to me when they got torched by Alabama in the championship game that, oh, well, it's hard. We have academic restrictions. We can't recruit that athlete that Alabama had. And they were coming up with excuses as to why that game was bad. Not that Manti Te'o had a fake girlfriend that was going on before the game, but it was just all the stuff that was happening. Yeah, and then you hear that, and it's like, okay, so Brian Kelly getting Notre Dame and having that success, you would think, absolutely, he's unbelievably accomplishing himself as one of the legendary Notre Dame coaches. Wasn't good enough. He wanted to go out there and compete against Nick Saban. He wanted to go out there and start becoming that coach that had to go get the national championship behind his resume. And sure enough, he goes down to a great spot where his previous predecessors, all three of them, in the first 4 years, all came up with national championships. And he doesn't. In his last year, he's not even going to make I don't think LSU makes the tournament. So he's not even going to have a tournament appearance. And so now maybe his record's tarnished, but he's going to walk away with $54 million. And at 64 years old, what's next? What is it worth? And
I'm worried about a thing. Like I said, a couple of million, and I'm more than happy to go out the door.
Right. And so I think the money's dictating a lot of the mindset of where it's going, and the gambling is a big part of it. Remember, if you're working at DraftKings and you're one of the people in the office and you have a high-end job, you're making $1 million a year. There's no bookmaker on the street that's paying this guy to talk about the numbers that they're paying $1 million a year for back in the day. So you know what I mean? So it's kind of a different angle. So maybe they need all this revenue, and need to have all this to cover their back end. And so put out everything you can gamble on. Make the live bet, the odds spreads in live betting ridiculous, where you have to hit 75% of your live bets to win because you're laying 140, 145 every live bet you make. It's different.
Sleeping with the devil, my friend. Yep. It's the integration of this stuff, and it's created all kinds of bizarre circumstances. We don't know where it's going, but we do know this. Fueled by self-sabotage, we're going to be betting on this stuff anyway, regardless.
You got it.
We think it's on a level. So let's get into it. Mike Jones here on
Let's do it.
Interesting, though, the way things have gone and how, I've mentioned this a zillion times, too. You would start talking about some gambling thing on a radio show going back 20, 30 years ago. And even as recently as 5 years ago, the program director would come running down the hallway there with a sledgehammer ready to break the glass, telling you that if you didn't stop, you were not only finished, but they would be escorting you out, not even with their own in-house security, but with like regular BSO cops.
Right.
And now that's all anybody's doing. That's all anybody's talking about. So let's get into it here. A few things right away off the top. All right, NFL very tough. Indy and New England, the best teams against the spread, 6-2.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle, the Rams, and Detroit are all 5-2. The worst teams against the spread. Tennessee and New Orleans, which we've talked about. I mean, it seems like you can safely look. They're both 2-6. So you're talking about 4-12. You're up 8 units if you just bet against them every time. Mm-hmm. And Vegas and Baltimore are 2-5. So that's just some generalities here. We do have an NFL game to kick things off on a discussion today, and that's coming up tomorrow night. Interesting matchup here. Ravens and the Dolphins, Mike Jones. I know you've probably taken a look at this ball game, even though we didn't have any pre-show discussion about what we were going to get into here. But this is what I love about you. It doesn't matter what game you're talking about. You could be talking about Liberty versus Middle Tennessee State, and you've got an opinion, which is a good thing. So, and this is kind of interesting. The Ravens finally win a ball game. They beat the Cleveland Browns, who ironically had just slaughtered and embarrassed the Miami Dolphins the previous week. Now, the Ravens have been a huge disappointment, as evidenced by their 2-5 record against the spread. And the Miami Dolphins, obviously a huge disappointment at 2-6 on the season, although they're foe. They're Moses Malone against the point spread. They are at home. They're getting 7 and a hook, according to the line I'm looking at right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think. I mean, have either of these teams convinced you with their win last week that they've accomplished some kind of a turnaround. And if they were going to live up to or measure up to expectations, preseason expectations, you would think the Ravens have it all over the Miami Dolphins in this game. But do you consider the 7.5 a tempting enough number to make you think that Miami is the bet? Where do you stand on that one?
It's really interesting. I do like the 7.5, but the hard part to pull the trigger on it is just knowing that Lamar Jackson is going to play down here near his home area, and you think that Baltimore is still good enough to make a run at this, and the odds makers believe it. So I think this is a game probably Baltimore wins. But Miami did prove something last week that they do. We've always thought they had players, and your statement was they're the best 1-5, 1-16.
I was wrong.
And we go back that the best part is we figured a way to keep you in town because the loser leave town's match against the Cleveland Browns when they were destroyed. And if you were just 1 week too late,
I'm not supposed to be here right now.
1 week too early on it, you just came in, and now they come up with a game where, look, let's look at the facts, right? 1,300 of the 4,000 players in Circus Survivor had the Falcons and lost last week. Along with Cincinnati, took out half the people in the pool. I think we're down to under 2,000, barely under 2,000 left. So, yeah, just whenever you think it looks easy. And last week there was only 200 dogs that covered. They were the Jets and they were the Dolphins. So somehow these bad teams somehow seem a way to get up. I just look at it this way. I think it's really tough to go on a road in just 3 days off and play. The thing is, the Ravens played this right. Let Hundley start last week. Try to sneak out a win against the Bears, who have a bad run defense, and try to pound Derrick Henry a little bit. Hope the defense can solve some issues. Chicago left points on the field, lose by 14. So maybe that gets the win number 2, gets the Ravens going. So everybody thinks the Ravens. But I think maybe Miami found some. I think there's parts of this team that's as talented as what they're going to face against Baltimore. Baltimore's still struggling a little bit on defense. If the offensive line can hold up to it, can put up 25 to 30, then it comes down to how healthy is Lamar? Does he twinge the hamstring again? Hamstrings are tough injuries to come back on. I just will take the home dog on a short week. That's just me. Road favorites traveling on a short week like this are tough bets in my mind. So I don't love it, but if I'm, that old thing, if I'm going to have to make a play, I'm going to take the home dog in this spot.
Look, we could end up getting clobbered, bleeding from every pore, like Bob Kuchenberg used to be
What's
on
happening?
drives with Zonka and Kick and Merck, and they would run everything right up the freaking middle, right over the center, and Kuch would be standing after a 20-play drive that went for 83 yards, and literally like Chuck Wepner, like the Bayonne bleeder at the end of this thing. So we can end up in that kind of shape, but I'm thinking just like you are, 7.5 at home. Miami Dolphins, I don't know that weather is going to be any particular factor here. Certainly Lamar Jackson is accustomed to this, haven't played high school football here, and had an illustrious career. And then they had to look, they made a new law in his honor after he was suspended and left high school football because he was giving kids like a ride home or something. I mean, how ridiculous was that? So they now have the Lamar Jackson role. Great respect for this guy. The way that he plays, he hasn't always measured up in the postseason. Could be for a variety of reasons, but yeah, I mean, Baltimore was really awful there for a while, and they're going to bounce off a short week. Excuse me, and Jackson hasn't been playing. Does he come in and light it up against a suspect Miami Dolphin defense, or did Mike McDaniel, who was very much on the Ed Ogeron hot seat just a week ago, all of a sudden become Mike McGenius again and figure out a way to use the personnel without Tyreek Hill in the lineup to actually generate some points? Is there a small element of pride that may be in place with the Miami Dolphins? I have to take the points in this spot. I'm with you. Like I said, we may end up needing a cut man, but I'm thinking, is Baltimore overall a better team? Probably. Can the Dolphins just stop Derrick Henry? I guess that would be another issue.
And that's a big ask because you got to stick your nose into one.
Are they giving up like 7 yards a carry or something along those lines?
Yeah, they're tough. They can basically get in there and do it, but they're home. Get a little crowd base, little fan base get going a little bit.
Fan base is neutered at this point, though.
Yeah, but it's like they got to win. They got something to get excited about, so that's
very la-di-da. They may as well dig up Dolphin Denny and have him out there with a little towel that says "Go." Highly inspirational. So players are coming off the field,
right?
but Yeah, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go ahead and take the points in that ball game. Just because I don't trust Baltimore has all of a sudden solved their problems with this win over the Browns, who are come see come si, and very Jekyll and Hyde like in their performances. The fact that they shellacked, being a horse racing guy, you look at common opponents always. I think it's a very important handicapping tool. How did you do against common
Mhm.
opponents? Whether you're talking about football, basketball, whatever it is, common opponents doesn't look good for the Miami
No.
Dolphins. They get shellacked, and the Ravens, without their quarterback in the lineup, come back and beat them like a drum the subsequent week.
Mhm.
So on that note, you would have to think the 7.5 is not overwhelming, but I just believe at home on a Thursday night after winning a ball game finally, maybe the Dolphins have figured out enough to be within this ball game. So we're unanimous on that one. Dolphins Thursday night, getting 7 and a hook. You say they may not win the game, but they will be somehow keeping it close. Maybe even a backdoor
Yeah.
cover gets us out of this thing. All right, what else are you looking at? I'm going to let you go ahead.
I'm gonna skip over Saturday. Saturday's have been pretty rough for me. I
Okay.
kind of think the team I've been on top is a big underdog at Utah, get 9.5 Cincinnati, so I can't really pick that game. My South Carolina Gamecocks struggled, hang in there with Alabama. And if you bet a teaser on Alabama, you saw them Ole the tackle to get the ball back, which kind of made it a very interesting thing. So you won your teaser with Alabama against them this week. They're going out Ole Miss lane 12.5. I really don't like that. So I'm going to go straight to Sunday. Feel a little more comfortable on Sundays. Get a little handle. Injuries are more out there. You don't have to dig in hard. And I'm going to start in Cincinnati, where the Bengals get a shocker up 14 against New York Jets.
Yeah.
Struggle, hold on to a win. Aaron Glenn gets an exciting first win. Fields looks like he's the second coming of Donovan McNabb, and now he's back to oil if he can't throw for 50 yards in 2 straight games, and now all of a sudden he can play. So the Bengals seem to be the get-right defense that teams want to go up with. Well, the Chicago Bears go in there with a little bit more high-powered and structured offense. They're laying 2.5 at the time when I looked at this bet. I saw now it went to 3, which is a key number in betting, that when they get off 2.5, go to 3. That's kind of a indicative of what you see. And that we have the New York Jet factor in this game, as you love me to bring up, that the New York Jets, teams playing the New York Jets are 0-7. Teams coming off with games with the Jets. So the Bengals lost to the Jets this week. They were on the field. Next week, the following week, they didn't cover 0-7. Last week, it was Carolina against Buffalo, and Buffalo steamrolls Carolina covers. So that New York Jets jinx factor, I'm going to add in. So teams coming off playing the Jets next week against a spread of 0-7. I got the minus 2.5 with the Bears, and I'm going to be pick number one is going to be with me, which is going to be Chicago Bears to get right in Cincinnati laying 2.5.
Very good, solid logic on that thing, Mike Jones. You did some serious research on that. I love your New York Jet factor. I don't think I've seen that cited anywhere else on any other show, on any other podcast, any other piece of literature on the degenerate lifestyle. But that's a good number. I'm going to throw one at you. I mean, I'm looking at the Falcons. They were god awful last week, were they not? I mean, they lose to the Dolphins in disgraceful fashion at home. The Pats with Mike Vrabel, the 6-2, darling so far, 6-2 overall, 6-2 against the spread. Laying 5.5. Now this is kind of a chalky. We've seen dicey moments with the Patriots, but many people feel that Drake May. I think you even mentioned this is the best of the lot of the
Mhm.
quarterbacks that came out of that class from a couple of years ago. Drake May has distinguished himself as so far being the most advanced and a guy that's making progress. And somehow Vrabel seems to have rallied this team in whatever culture he's created there and has them playing some pretty good football. After an abysmal performance by the Falcons, I think the Pats are good to cover 5.5 in that ball game. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Patriots, and I believe they are at home. Yeah, they are at home in this one. So Patriots, I think they're a touchdown better than this team in general at this stage, especially at home. I'm going to go ahead and lay the 5.5 with the Patriots there against the Falcons, who, I mean, they look like they were in a desperate downward spiral, did they not? Off that performance against the Dolphins. I don't know how you feel about that game, or if it's one of the games that you want to select.
No, I'm going to pass on that game, but
All right.
I just that's the
What do you
different
think,
game.
though? I mean, would you give
Well,
me?
I
You're
mean,
wearing red.
I'm
You're
going to
wearing
say that the week-to-week league that that's going to be a tougher spot. I think they're going to
all
get
right.
Penix back. I think Kirk Cousins caused a lot of the problems from what I saw. Like you don't know if he might have had the highway robbery of getting 180 million from Arthur Blank and the Falcons to go over down there, and then they draft Penix. So there must have been some kind of disagreement within that office that all of a sudden they signed the quarterback that they placed that's going to be the future for 4 years. Yet they draft the guy with the eighth pick and took him out. I think the shocker that night I was out in Vegas watching the draft on my phone that night when Michael Penix was taken. I was like, holy cow, that must be some disruption. So I kind of go the other way a little bit. If I had to take a lean, I like taking the dog, and
Oh,
I don't have many dogs here that I'm pulling from. But I'm going to go to Detroit for my next game and just look at the Lions the way they played against Tampa, pounding them all over the field. As good a beatdown with no secondary. They get their secondary back. Minnesota loses Carson Wentz. I know that J.J. McCarthy's coming off an injury and he's going to make his first start in a while. If something happens and that doesn't work, we go to Max Brosmer. Lions defense there. We'll see if they can bounce back after the 10 days off. But boy, oh boy, I look at this game and say, boy, the Lions are laying 9, big number. Don't want to usually lay over a touchdown in this league. They came clean the Monday night with Washington getting beat after it looked like that they came out pretty well and threw that horrible interception off the face mask of Debo when he turned his tracks away. So I always feel with Kansas City laying 11, I don't like to lay it, but these big numbers are covering. Tennessee didn't cover this week against the Colts. Colts covered a big number. So I'm going to look at the Lions -9 and think they're getting it going at home undefeated against the spread at home, and I think they get it done against Minnesota.
oh, the chalk players were doing a Kazansky to the windows last
Yeah,
week. It was incredible
11-2 last week. Yep.
how many favorites ended up coming in the National Football League. I have a bizarre one here that I'm looking at. I would imagine you have an opinion on it also, Mike. But the Jags are awful of late. I mean, they just look horrible, in total disarray, incapable of pulling off a win. They are laying 3 to the Las Vegas Raiders on the road, I believe, in Las Vegas. You have made a case here and there for the Raiders, who you talk about a Jekyll and Hyde team. They're either awful or god awful, but when they're awful, at least they're capable of either maybe pulling out a mysterious win or covering a point spread. I'm thinking about taking the 3 here with the Las Vegas Raiders in this game against the Jaguars. I don't know if you have any feelings about that one.
Yeah, not that I would take, but I'm kind of with you a little bit. But I think you can wait on this and might get 3.5 or 4. I think by game day, I think that line should go up because the Raiders. You brought up a great stat. The Raiders are 2-6 against the number, not covered, or 2-5. They're struggling against the number to the record. So that's a game that you think if Jacksonville gets right after struggling the week before, getting the week off. So you would think the rest helps them. They come off a bye. That'd be a tough spot. The game kind of I looked at a little bit, but kind of will pass. Won't make it one of my 5. But I could see your point there. Home underdog in the NFL, and but I think if you wait, you might see 3.5 or 4. That's just a guess over the weekend.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to take my. I mean, it's not one I have an overwhelming amount of confidence in. I was just borrowing one of your theories. All right. So what do we have from you, Mike Jones, officially here on the
All
break?
right, we're gonna go homer. We're gonna be a homer. A lot of
Let's do it.
emotion last week.
Did that
Very
Dolphin
close.
pick count against the points, or no?
Nope.
That was just
I'm going to a homer for my homer. I'm going to look at the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers.
okay.
Giants suffer a devastating injury to Cam Scatterboo. I thought they played well. I thought the interference call on Slayton's touchdown was bogus. I thought the tush push play where he clearly fumbled the ball and the whistle didn't blow like the ref said, according to what Kayvon Thibodeau said in the interview. The ref said forward progress and the whistle had blown. Clearly, you could hear the play that the ball was almost off Thibodeau's body, and Deontay Banks could have picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown by the time that whistle was called. And that would have changed the game to 14-7, probably would have changed Cam Scatterboo's future because of what happened there. We get a bad offsides call right after that. They gave them a first down on a 3rd and 2, where Thibodeau jumped and it was clear the offensive lineman moved. The refs missed that call. Just a horribly officiated game in the Giants' favor. San Francisco walks in with their injuries and the tough defense, laying 2.5. Giants have been impressive on offense, averaging a touchdown more since Jackson Dart got in there. A high total of 48.5. Maybe they think this could be a little bit more of a shootout than normal. Always tough to deal with Christian McCaffrey. I'm going with the home dog and think that with all the tough times going on in New York and Brian Dable with his head on a platter and all that, somehow we rise up and Jackson Dart's development continues and the Giants still a game against the San Francisco 49ers. And tough again to go from West Coast to East Coast, although that number hasn't been accurate this year. But it is tough to go out and play and then come back. So they go to Houston, have to come back out west. Now they have to go east again. San Francisco does to play the Giants at a 1 o'clock start. I'm going to take my shot, my homeboys, and then we get plus 2.5. I'm hoping to see 3 on Sunday.
All right. What else you have for us?
I'm going to go to next game is the big one of the day. Buffalo's won 4 straight against Kansas City in Buffalo. I know they lost Ed Oliver. I think they got the get-right game last week against Carolina. Minnesota, Kansas City going off a short week to play probably their biggest rival they play in the playoffs. Kansas City looks too good. They're laying 2 on the road. This game has been the whole Buffalo has been the favorite in this game in the last few years, and in a regular season game. You're getting a home dog, Buffalo plus the 2. Their offensive line is good. It can't stop the run, but Kansas City's had problems with the run, and there's Cook going for 200 last week against Carolina. I'm just going to say this is the game for Buffalo. If they're going to stay in it with New England, they can't lose this game. I'm going to say Buffalo plus 2.
That was one of my picks also. I'm with you on that, so you're in trouble. Because I cannot gauge Kansas City. When I go with them, I lose, and when I go against them, I lose. And that's the way it's been going all season long with them. But they do appear to have found a little bit of a spark. I don't know that they're putting up huge numbers offensively, even though they did run away and hide in their last ball game there on Monday Night Football, 28-7. But yeah, I think the Bills maybe every team incurs a couple of shockers or seems to slump for a brief period of time. Look, beginning of the year, the Jaguars look great. Now they look like garbage. So I think the Bills may have regathered themselves. I'm with you. I'm going to take the 1.5 at home with the Buffalo Bills. All right. So how many picks do we have from you here, Mike?
4, and the last one I'm going to Monday night.
Okay.
Dallas is averaging 40 points at home. They can lay 2.5 against the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals and Kyler Murray undefeated at Texas Stadium. Jerry's world. So he won there successfully as an Oklahoma Sooner. I just like that Dallas played so poorly last week in Denver that they right the ship. I like the Cowboys lay the 2.5 in this spot. I think Dak Prescott after coming off his worst game gets better. I think the Cardinals are still a struggling team. And I think Dallas, this is their game right now. If they're going to make a move at the trade deadline to try to make a run of the wild card or maybe push Philly a little bit to the brink, this is a must-win situation. I like the game being under 3. So my 5th game, I'm going to come in and take Dallas minus 2.5.
All right, we're going to go a little rapid fire here on some college games. Just get an opinion here. I'm looking at Syracuse laying 2.5 against North Carolina. We know North Carolina sucks. They did get into an overtime game. They ended up losing it. But nonetheless.
Yeah, I think Syracuse minus 2.5 probably the play there. I just don't want to count Belichick out in any game that he coaches. That's for my pride, that being a fan of his. And, they were pretty tough against Virginia.
I'm to the point now where I'm rooting for him to lose every game. So, being a Syracuse alum, very tepid about laying 2.5 with the Cuse football team since they lost their quarterback, especially for the year early on. But I think they beat UNC because UNC just absolutely blows. What do you think about Miami laying 11.5 at SMU?
Yeah, on the road, tough game. I know Miami sleptwalked through the first half, 7-7 with Stanford last week. SMU's got talent. They made the tournament last year. I think that's a lot of points to lay on the road. 3-1 in the ACC. Miami needs this win to stay atop the ACC. Can't afford to lose another game. Needs that ACC championship. So I think Miami wins, but I don't know that I'd lay 11.5. This will be a good test for Miami to look at where they are as a team after the loss to Louisville. And a decisive victory in this spot will kind of get them more in that playoff talk, but I think they need to prove it on the field. So I'm going to take the home dog plus 11.5 in this spot, but thinking Miami wins the game.
All right, so you got Belichick getting the 2 in the hook. You have SMU getting 11 in the hook. Georgia and Florida. Georgia 7.5 point favorite on the road against and his new coach.
Yeah, again, here's the instability of the head coach, and coming in new factor. Does it give Florida a lift? Rivalry game. Tough spot here. A neutral site game, usually like to stay away, but if I had to, make a play in this game, it would probably be a Georgia lean on a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. Too much chaos there in that Gator program, and not enough evidence that they're really all that good. Georgia, maybe looking to step on the gas pedal here a little bit and just bury these guys once and for all. USC laying 6.5 against Nebraska. USC on the road against Nebraska. Any thought on that ball game, Mike Jones?
Yeah, I like the home dog. Tough place to play, Nebraska. SC, has played very well. I just kind of like Nebraska in this spot. I know they've been up and down, and who knows if Matt Rule's attention is elsewhere to being one of these names for all these jobs. I think to prove that if he wants it, he's going to have to come out with a W here. I think it's a big game for Nebraska. Just see how USC does take it on the road. They're not real good covers. They've been on the road since they've gotten to the Big Ten, on the road. So I'm going to take a shot and take Nebraska as a home dog. Don't know if they win it, but I think they keep it close.
Hard to trust the Trojans. That's another one of those teams. And I had a great spot in my heart, of course, for the Trojans. Covered a lot of USC football when I first got started out in California, writing for the local newspapers. 6 and hook on the road. I'd be tempted to lay it just because I can hear the fight song in my head, but I don't know that I'm going to touch that ball game. All right, and I guess this is one of the marquee games, if not the marquee game. Is that possible? Texas Vanderbilt? Whoever thought you would be
very
saying?
Interesting. Very interesting. And I don't count Diego Pavia out in any game that he plays. They find a way, but you would have to think that Texas would be the side in this game. But I believe that Manning's in concussion protocol, though I don't know if that matters. The kid threw beautiful touchdown.
Yeah, it might be better. Yeah.
Yeah, it might touchdown pass to win the game. That's kind of interesting to see what happens. I would think Texas just has a little bit better talent and should win this game. And if they want it, this is a win, do or die for them. To get in the tournament, and people think Vanderbilt's going to get in. So this is a really interesting game. I don't really have a particular play. I would kind of lean it a little bit Texas, but what are they laying? What's the number in that game? Are they laying
2 and a hook? I saw
2 and a hook. Yeah,
2 and a hook.
Yeah, there it is. Just think of that. Texas only laying 2.5. That line probably in September was 19. And look at what you get now. So just a real interesting game. We'll be tuned in. Noon start Saturday on ABC. Texas, Vanderbilt. I kind of think Texas, with their talent on defense and the running game, should overwhelm Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt doesn't surprise me, being extremely well coached. And Pavia just makes plays with his legs, getting a nice win after that horrific injury to the quarterback of Missouri. I kind of like Texas in this side, but that's the two obvious pick. The fun pick would be Vandy.
All right. And the Mike Jones 5-pack for this week here on Break the Bank is, once again,
the Bears minus 2.5, the Giants plus 2.5, the Lions minus 9, the Cowboys minus 2.5, and the Buffalo Bills in the big game Sunday afternoon. We're taking a shot with the home dog plus 2.
Yeah, baby. I love it. All right, and which way are we going? Now we're going Blue Jays tonight, both of us?
No, I'm going to take the Dodgers. I'm going to take the Dodgers and come back and play the series price the other way. I'm going to have fun going game 7. But one other one, too, that I think is very interesting. So the game of the year was actually this week. Ohio State, Penn State. Does Penn State stay within the 20.5? I don't know that I'd lay it with Ohio State, thinking everything has gone wrong. Do they establish the running game? Does the defense stand up? When is Ohio State going to look like they're human? They've been covering all these games. 20.5, a lot of points. Should be like a 4 game. Yeah. I mean, I would probably take it in this side and enjoy that game and think maybe there's a life in Penn State. You can lift these guys up for one little game. That's what I think.
I hate both teams, so I'll root for both of them to lose.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Great to be on Bleacher Brothers. Yep.
Yeah, be back with us next week after hopefully making a giant score there at the Breeders' Cup. That's a great event. Couldn't be a better scene there in Del Mar. And then next year we're going to have to go because Breeders' Cup race course. So we'll get AJ Johnson, the pony up the money for all of the Bleacher Brothers group. And we'll have a massive presence out there at Keeneland as AJ's horses dance home with $7 million purse money winnings. That'd be great. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Keep it right here on Bleacher Brothers Big Wednesday lineup. It's always great to be a part of it. And we'll catch you again tomorrow morning. I will with Mike Lubitz on our morning show. The Defo Show gets underway right here on Bleacher Brothers at 8 o'clock. For Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForest, and for Frankie G, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next edition of Break the Bank.